There's a method using an empty plastic bottle that costs you nothing, and it keeps any plant alive for weeks without you ever touching a watering can again. Not a quick fix that dries out after a day. A slow, steady water source that mimics natural rainfall absorption for as long as 2 full weeks on a single filling. Amish farming communities have used this exact method since the 1940s, long before modern drip irrigation systems existed in any store. University agricultural extension programs have since confirmed what these communities figured out through generations of simple, no-electricity farming solutions. The modern gardening industry generates over $2 billion annually selling automated watering systems, moisture sensors, and subscription plant care devices. A method using a bottle you already have in your recycling bin does not fit anywhere inside that business model. They did not stop mentioning this method because it failed. They stopped mentioning it because it competes directly with devices costing anywhere from $20 to $200. This is the story of the Amish bottle irrigation method and the gardening industry that quietly buried it under decades of expensive automated alternatives. Welcome to Vault Breaker. This is where we open every single vault that billion-dollar industries paid good money to lock shut. If this knowledge matters to you, subscribe and ring the bell right now, because what you are about to learn changes how every single plant in your home and garden survives when you are not there to water it. Go back to rural Pennsylvania in the 1940s, inside Amish farming communities that relied entirely on manual labor and simple mechanical solutions, rather than electricity or modern irrigation equipment. Amish farmers faced a persistent challenge familiar to every gardener throughout history. Plants needed consistent moisture, but manual watering every single day was labor-intensive across large vegetable plots and greenhouse rows. Farmers began experimenting with repurposed glass bottles, inverting them directly into the soil beside individual plants, allowing gravity and soil moisture pressure to control the release of water gradually over many days. The method spread through Amish agricultural communities as standard practice for both field crops and greenhouse seedlings, documented in community farming journals passed between families for generations. By the 1960s, agricultural researchers visiting these communities began documenting the technique formally, recognizing it as a remarkably effective form of what modern horticulture would eventually call subsurface drip irrigation. Similar bottle and clay pot-based slow irrigation methods have appeared independently across other cultures throughout history as well, from ancient unglazed clay pot irrigation used in North Africa and the Middle East for thousands of years, to bamboo-based drip systems developed in parts of rural Asia. Every culture that farmed in dry conditions without access to modern plumbing eventually arrived at some version of the same basic principle, because the underlying physics never changes regardless of the materials available. Here's the actual science behind why this simple bottle method works so consistently well, and why it took decades for commercial companies to package the same basic principle at a markup. When you invert a water-filled bottle with a small opening into soil, water does not simply pour out freely the way it would in open air. Soil moisture creates a natural pressure balance against the opening of the bottle. As the surrounding soil dries slightly, it creates suction that pulls water gradually from the bottle to replace exactly what has been lost. This is a self-regulating system. When the soil is already moist, very little water releases. When the soil dries out, more water is pulled from the bottle automatically, without you adjusting anything. This mimics precisely what deep, slow natural rainfall does for plant roots, delivering moisture gradually at root level rather than flooding the surface, where much of it simply evaporates before ever reaching the roots. Commercial drip irrigation systems, moisture-sensing automated watering devices, and self-watering planter inserts sold today for $20 to $200 operate on this exact same fundamental principle of soil moisture-regulated water release. The only meaningful difference is plastic tubing, a pump, and a brand name attached to a concept that costs literally nothing when using a bottle you would otherwise throw away. There is actually a secondary benefit that most people overlook entirely. Because water is delivered slowly and directly at root depth rather than sitting on the surface, plant roots are encouraged to grow deeper and stronger, searching for that consistent moisture source, rather than staying shallow near a surface that only gets wet briefly during traditional watering. Deeper, stronger root systems generally produce healthier, more drought-resistant plants overall, which means this method is not simply a convenience trick. It genuinely improves plant health compared to standard surface watering in many cases. Now here is exactly why this knowledge stayed relatively obscure outside of farming communities for so many decades. Garden centers and home improvement stores generate substantial revenue from automated watering products, moisture meters, and subscription plant care services that solve a problem. This simple bottle method already solves for free. A gardening company cannot build a product catalog, a marketing campaign, or repeat customer relationships around telling you to reuse an empty bottle you already own. So commercial gardening media and retail advertising emphasize purchase solutions, While this genuinely effective community-tested method remained something you had to specifically seek out or learn from an older, experienced gardener. Think about every houseplant you have lost while away on a week-long trip, coming home to find it wilted and dying because nobody was there to water it. Think about every automated watering gadget you have purchased for $30 or $40 that ended up clogging, malfunctioning, or requiring batteries that eventually died at the worst possible moment. All of it solving a problem that an empty bottle and simple physics already solved for free for generations, inside farming communities that never needed a subscription service. If you have made it this far, you already know more about sustainable plant watering than most people buying their third automated watering gadget this year. Subscribe and share this with anyone who has ever come home from vacation to a dead houseplant. Now stay with me, because here's exactly how to set this up yourself in under 5 minutes. Take any empty plastic or glass bottle, ranging from a small 16-ounce bottle for potted houseplants up to a large 2-liter bottle for outdoor garden beds or larger container plants. Using a small nail, a drill bit, or a sharp knife tip, create 2 or 3 small holes near the neck of the bottle, roughly the width of a pencil lead. Fill the bottle completely with water and quickly place your thumb or a cap loosely over the opening while you position it. Dig a small hole in the soil close to your plant's base, angled slightly, deep enough that about 2/3 of the bottle will sit below the soil surface once inverted. Invert the bottle into the hole, neck facing downward, and press soil firmly around it to hold it upright and stable. For larger outdoor bottles, you can leave the base of the bottle exposed above the soil, making refilling simple by just pouring water directly into the upturned base. For smaller indoor houseplant applications, a completely buried small bottle near the root zone works beautifully and stays hidden within the pot soil. Depending on bottle size, soil type, and plant water needs, a single filling typically provides steady moisture release anywhere from 5 days up to 2 full weeks before requiring a refill. This method works exceptionally well for tomatoes, peppers, squash, most houseplants, and any container garden where consistent moisture matters more than surface watering convenience. I need to be honest with you about one limitation here. This method works best for plants with moderate to high water needs planted in well-draining soil. Extremely drought-tolerant plants like succulents and cacti need far less water overall, so use a smaller bottle with fewer holes, or skip this method entirely for those specific plants, since overwatering is a bigger risk for them than underwatering. For the vast majority of vegetables, flowering plants, and common house plants that make up most home gardens, this limitation simply does not apply. A gardener in rural Iowa documented switching her entire vegetable garden from daily manual watering to bottle irrigation in the summer of 2022, using this exact method across 40 individual plants. She reported spending under $2 total on bottle preparation supplies, saving what she estimated at over 6 hours per week previously spent on manual watering, while her plants showed noticeably more consistent growth than in previous growing seasons. By the end of that first season, she noted her tomato plants specifically had grown visibly deeper, more established root systems compared to a smaller control section of her garden. She had continued watering manually as a comparison. One additional tip worth mentioning. For plants that benefit from a small nutrient boost, you can dissolve a small amount of diluted liquid fertilizer directly into the bottled water before inverting it, allowing nutrients to release gradually alongside the moisture over the same multi-day period. Amish farming communities refine this method across multiple generations, relying on careful observation rather than laboratory testing or marketing budgets. University extension researchers who eventually studied the technique confirmed exactly what these communities already knew from decades of hands-on results in their own fields. The modern gardening industry built an entire product category around a concept that costs nothing when you already have an empty bottle sitting in your recycling bin. If this vault opens something for you, subscribe and share it with someone whose plants never survive a single week without daily attention. The next vault opens soon, and what is buried inside it goes even deeper than this one.